day, everyone. I am Jerme Ehegaitera, a BEd student of Norso Shaton campus. As a continuation of our group report in Unit 4, which is Instructional Strategies and Methods of Teaching for Science, I will discuss the following teaching strategies and approaches. The following are as follows: role play as a teaching strategy, gamification, and design thinking. Let us define first what is roleplay. According to Jones 1985, a working definition of roleplay is more difficult to arrive at largely because it is associated with dramatic activity in the minds of teachers and also because of confusion in the literature arising from its relatedness to play, games, and simulation. There are working definitions of roleplays relatives. So first is play. According to Piaget 1951, a behavior used during the development for children to learn about their environment which produces enjoyment. The environment includes physical objects, interactions, and societal rules of conduct. Next is games. According to Adams 1973, games are like play except that they usually have an end, a playoff. Simulation is the imitation of conditions, pretending to have or be something. According to Adams 1973, in education, simulation is often referred to as simulation games, which are usually more controlled than being mere extensions of games, and are detailed models intended to reflect a situation found in the real world. There are other reasons why roleplay may be a valuable educational tool. First, it gives science teachers another option that can be used to link their work with the more feeling, creative side of education and as a method of increasing the manipulation of factual material by children. A good example is asking children to describe the water cycle to their peers in the role of television weather presenters. Second reason, it gives children a feeling of ownership of their education. So when we say ownership, it refers to the way a child facilitates their own learning by creating their own role plays through either scripted or improvised work. For example, explaining the way the planets orbit the sun. Third reason, it can be used effectively to teach about moral or ethical issues arising from the curriculum. For example, debates about genetically manipulated food production or the arguments for and against the opening of a new quarry in the school's playing field. It can help children across the full spectrum of educational needs to interpret their place in the world. Merely explaining to children about their environment in the course of a theory lesson may not be the best method for helping them to gain an understanding of why it is there or how the processes at work in the environment have formed it. Next, many role plays are based upon analogy, which helps children to conceptualize and greatly increases learning. So for example, kinetic theory, electrical currents, and antibody-antigen interactions. Why use role play in science? So why do we need to use role play in teaching science? The theory behind the use of role play in science teaching and learning, as with active, experiential, or child-centered learning, is that children are encouraged to be physically and intellectually involved in their lessons to allow them to both express themselves in a scientific context and develop an understanding of difficult concepts. The key to roleplay and the reason why roleplay can help to make science relevant to many children is that it is based upon play. Next strategy is gamification. So what is gamification? Gamification of all subjects has become increasingly popular in K-12 and higher education. The introduction of games and technology into the classroom provides many unique experiences for children that enhance subject area knowledge. In particular, games offer children and young adults a hands-on approach to course content which provides additional motivation for students to learn and understand the curriculum. When we say gamification, it is the process of adapting elements of gameplay to other activities, like learning a new concept to foster engagement with that activity. So there are many subject areas that can be gamified. However, games can be particularly helpful when teaching students science-based lessons. The key to using games in the classroom is to make sure that they are paired with additional material and incorporated into assessments. So there are ways to gamify your classroom. So we need to adapt old school games for classroom use. So these are the list of an old school games. We have scavenger hunts, bingo, dice games, Connect Four, and Scrabble have been around for decades and can be adapted for classroom learning. Put vocabulary words on bingo cards and see if students can match the words after hearing the definitions. Working in groups, students can play Scrabble by spelling out answers to content-specific questions. Second is playing digital games. Students love playing Kahoot, Quizzes, Quizlet Live, GymKit, and the newest online trivia and games, BlueKit. These free platforms allow teachers to create multiple choice questions that players answer on their own devices. Teachers can also choose from the thousands of quizzes already shared on this site or create content-specific questions to use as pre-assessments, quizzes, or exit tickets. Third is create a quest. A quest is a mission with an objective. Students can earn points from the questions they answered correctly. So whoever got the highest score will win a prize. Also, quests can be independent projects or activities for the students who have finished the work. Next way of gamifying your classroom is battle it out with a boss battle. In gaming, when we say a boss, it is a villain who the hero must defeat to save the day. On the other hand, on the gamification platform Classcraft, teachers can create their own boss battles and quests using questions from any content area. Teachers can also create boss battles using Google Forms or Google Slides, creating their own unique fictional boss. And lastly is earn a badge for mastery. So, if Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts recognize mastery and achievements with badges, teachers can do the same by rewarding student accomplishments and mastery with badges, which go beyond grades because they represent more than just academic achievement. Students work toward completing different badges to show mastery of a concept, standard, or skill. Badges can be presented digitally using class badges or can be displayed for all to see once students have earned a specific badge. Last strategies and approaches in teaching is design thinking. Design thinking is a mindset and approach to learning, collaboration, and problem solving. In practice, the design process is a structured framework for identifying challenges, gathering information, generating potential solutions, refining ideas, and testing solutions. Let's know the design thinking processes. First is empathy. The first stage of the design process is to understand the perspective of the target, which is the audience, the customer, the consumer, to identify and address the problem at hand. To do this, design thinkers are encouraged to cast aside all assumptions about the problem, the consumers, and the world at large. This allows them to objectively consider any and all possibilities about the customers and their needs. Next stage is define. Putting together all of the information gathered in the first stage, the next step is to define the problem statement clearly. The resulting problem statement should be captured in human-centered terms rather than focused on business goals. Next stage is ideate. The ideation stage marks the transition from identifying problems to exploring solutions. It flows between idea generation and evaluation. But it's important that each process remains separate from each other. The ideation phase is usually a very creative and freeing phase for a team because they have permission to think of out-of-the-box ideas before deciding what they are going to prototype. After ideas are collected, move into the evaluation phase. This is where you can go around the room and discuss the ideas presented to get clarification if needed. The fourth stage is prototype. So when we say prototype, the goal is to start with a low fidelity version of the intended solution and improve it over time based on feedback. The prototype should be a realistic representation of the solution that allows you to gain an understanding of what works and doesn't work. Lastly is test. All of the work and information come together to test the product in the final stage. It's important to note that this is still an interactive stage. Testing is essential because everything ultimately should be about the people who will use your products. In teaching science, it is very important that educators uses different approaches and strategies to make the teaching and learning effective. That's all for my report about teaching strategies and approaches. So I hope you have learned something about my topic discussion.